In 1980, while Britain was busy discovering that television could double as computers, the BBC quietly built a sci-fi planet inside a studio and invited minor celebrities to get deleted from it. 3 contestants, 1 alien civilization, no cash prize, and a final challenge that felt like walking through a spreadsheet designed by an eccentric maths teacher. Welcome to the adventure game. Devised by Patrick Dowling and first broadcast on BBC One in May 1980, before moving to BBC Two, the adventure game ran for 4 series across 22 transmitted episodes. It looked like a children's program that had accidentally wandered into adult television and decided to stay. The premise was simple. 3 celebrity contestants traveled to the planet Arg. They were greeted by Gandor the Butler, played with immaculate calm by Christopher Lever, and introduced to the Argonds, a race who valued etiquette, pattern recognition, and the concept of worth. Instead of answering trivia or winning prizes, contestants solved conceptual puzzles. Earn enough wrongs, and you qualified for the final trial, the Vortex. Fail, and you were grunged. When the show launched, Britain was on the brink of its home computing boom. The Sinclair ZX80 had just arrived. The BBC Micro was about to colonize classrooms. Kids were typing basic code into televisions and feeling like minor wizards. Text adventures like Colossal Cave Adventure and Zork had trained players to think abstractly. Input a command, observe the result, adjust. The adventure game was that, but with humans. BBC Two in the early 80s loved this kind of thing. Slightly intellectual, slightly off, not interested in brash spectacle. Where ITV gave you light entertainment dazzle, BBC Two handed you a lateral thinking exam and trusted you not to panic. Production-wise, the show was borderline theatre disguised as science fiction. Early series were produced by Patrick Dowling, with later series overseen by Ian Oliver, who also directed. The sets were studio-built and unapologetically stagey, painted backdrops, carefully dressed props, lighting that leaned to minimalism. The Argonds themselves were a mix of performance and conceptual gag. Moira Stewart appeared in Series 1 as Darong. Charmian Gradwell's Noard became a recurring presence. Bill Homewood appeared in later series. And then there was the Rangdo, sometimes embodied by Ian Mesita. Tone was straight-faced. The absurdity came from the rules. But there was a part of the show that everyone tuned in for. It was called the Vortex, and it was the final challenge. A grid of hexagons across the studio floor. Contestants had to cross from one side to the other. Step only on safe hexes. One wrong move and you were grunged. Here is the important thing. There was no permanent solution. Each episode used a different hidden rule. Sometimes the safe spaces followed a numerical sequence. Sometimes symmetry. Sometimes positional logic. Occasionally arithmetic relationships between moves. The pattern was decided before recording. It was logical. It was solvable, but it was never explained. The grid itself was static. The intelligence was pre-designed and overseen by production. When a contestant stepped onto a hexagon, the outcome was triggered via studio control systems. If safe, they continued. If not, the grunge effect hit. The grunge was achieved with lighting shifts, sound design, and video effects. This was vision mixer sorcery and studio timing. The illusion of a thinking system was created by human coordination. In other words, the Vortex was theatre pretending to be a computer. And that was the genius. At home, viewers tried to decode the rule faster than the contestants. It felt participatory without needing phones or apps. You watched someone else step into an equation and hoped they didn't miscount. It was tense in a very specific 1980s way. Quiet, focused, almost academic. Then someone guessed wrong, and the show erased them. Unlike bombastic quiz formats, the adventure game assumed its audience liked thinking. It trusted that people would enjoy watching a system reveal itself slowly. It embraced abstraction during a period when Britain was learning to speak in binary. And it never shouted. That restraint made it distinctive. It was not trying to be the biggest show on television. It was trying to be the most curious. In hindsight, it feels like a bridge between 70s studio experimentation and the coming digital age, a rehearsal for interactive logic culture, a dress rehearsal for the idea that entertainment could be about cracking the code. The show ran until 1986, Some episodes were lost from the archives, later recovered in varying states. A DVD set eventually gathered surviving material and was released in 2017. For a program so tied to deduction and systems, it has remained strangely elusive. But ask anyone who saw it at the right age, and they will remember the Vortex, the hexagons, the dread of miscounting. They will remember being grunged. In an era when most game shows were about prizes, the adventure game offered something far more intoxicating. It offered rules with a sense of high-stakes failure, and for that, I will always remember the feeling of watching it. If you do too, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this classic show.